So, what is the name? What is the name of the Creator? What is the name of the Elohim of Israel? Some people have been claiming that it's Yahweh or Yahweh. Because you see, in the old days, the W was actually pronounced as a V. And if I understand correctly, I could be wrong, because I'm not fluent in German, but my relatives are. The W is still used, pronounced as a V. But that's not what we're getting into today. Today we're going to learn, once and for all, is it Yehovah or is it Yahweh? And is it important to know the name? Yes, it is. And here's proof. Right here, when you do a search on Bible Hub and you type in "Know My Name," there are 34 verses with all the terms "Know My Name." Now, if you type in "Shall know my name," it's 15 verses. We'll look at Isaiah 52 verse 6. Therefore my people will know my name. Okay? Psalm 91:14 will protect him because he knows my name. Protect him for he acknowledges my name. What is his name? Well, if we go to, see if it's, that's Psalm 81 right there. We'll go to Psalm 91 here briefly, and we will look in Strong's Concordance, and we will see what what is his name? What does Strong say? It says Yehovah. Alright? But I know there's a bunch of you out there who insist on it being Yahweh. And even Strong's uses that term interchangeably. Somewhere down here. Well, in other places they will use it, Yahweh, interchangeably. Alright? It's derived from the word Hava. And there is no Hava in Yahweh. That should be your first clue. Now, so a command was made, you shall have no foreign ale. Now, Deuteronomy 32, Moshe wrote this. It says, Yehovah alone led Israel, and there was no strange or foreign ale. So it was Yehovah and not a foreign. So what does foreign mean? Or nekar in Hebrew, what does that mean? To regard as foreign, belonging to another, as belonging to another nation. Okay? That which is foreign. That which foreigners use or invoke. All right? So that should be simple enough, right? Okay. So let us start with this. This foreign entity, Diuspiter, the original all-father of the gods, as they say, the ancestors of the Indo-European peoples, well, that's foreign, looked up to the sky and saw a father, cosmic patriarch with authority over the realm of daylight. Many Indo-European pantheons contain gods associated with the sky that have preeminence above other gods. But their interpretation was foreign. You see, the Greeks had Zeus, foreign. The Romans had Jupiter, foreign. In Hinduism, Dyaus originally had the same role to Zeus, foreign. Scholars have used these deities to attempt to reconstruct the original sky god of Proto-Indo-European religion, Dyaus. Okay, let's move on to in Greek mythology, Uranos, the personification of the sky, is considered a primordial deity, the son and husband of Gaia, Earth. Son and husband. Think about that. And the father of the first generation of Titans, making him a key figure in the origins of the Greek pantheon, but not the original Deuspiter. Okay, let us go to, while Uranos is a significant figure in the Greek creation myth, the concept of a Deuspiter, aka Father God, is more closely associated with the Indo-European sky god, Diuspiter, from which Zeus-Pater and Jupiter, aka Diaspiter, are derived. Those of you who are Catholics, Roman Catholics, you have just learned that the one you call the Father in your religion is Zeus and Jupiter. I want you to bear that in mind, keep that in mind when we continue. But I'm talking about Yahweh today. Now, in this particular PDF file, they talk about where the name Yahweh came from. The history of Yahweh, DJOVS, later known as JOVE, Pater, pronounced Yahweh, and later Jupiter. Did you hear that? It is the Italian evolution of diuspiter, foreign entity. You shall have no foreign ale. We just read that, did we not? Now they claim, they make a lot of claims, although not directly evolving from the Greek religion, it developed alongside it. And they're claiming, because this is how the Christians and the Roman Catholics interpret it. But their interpretation is wrong. And I will prove it to you in just a few minutes. This figure eventually became the Jewish, Roman Catholic, and Christian god Diuspiter. No, it never became Jewish. The Jewish Elohim. It's not possible. All right, so we go to the name Jove or Yahweh or Yahweh comes from the Latin name of the Roman god Jupiter. And we learn that the name actually came before Diuspiter. Yahweh is a masculine name that means father of the sky in Roman mythology. Jupiter was the king of the gods and the god of the thunder and the sky. He was also protector of Rome. This is Roman. Foreign. Because you see, the name Yahweh or Yahweh has its origins in Latin, not in Hebrew. Now, Zeus and Jupiter are the same, in case you haven't figured it out, but all the references that I have pointed out to just now. The abomination of desolation, a phrase found in the book of Daniel, referenced not by Jesus, but by Yehoshua, because the name of the Mashiach must have the name of Yehovah in it, and Jesus does not. Jesus is a fake and fraudulent name, as I have proven to you many, many, many times. Refers to a defiling act that causes desolation, and historically this is often interpreted as a placement of an idol, not possibly Zeus, but most certainly Zeus, in the Jewish temple as described in 2 Maccabees 6 and verse 2. So 2 Maccabees 6 verse 2 described it as the idol Zeus, or Jupiter, or Diuspiter, or Deuspiter, or Yahweh. The historical interpretation? Historically, this phrase is often linked to the Seleucid king Antiochus IV, who in the 2nd century BCE desecrated the Second Temple in Jerusalem by placing an altar dedicated to Zeus Olympius, the Greek god, inside, and sacrificed pigs there. And the placement of the altar and the sacrifice of pigs, which were considered unclean by Jewish law, were seen as a profound act of desecration and defilement of the Holy Temple. Now, unfortunately, Christians believe that the abomination of desolation is also a prophecy that will be fulfilled in the future. Not knowing or rejecting when when Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed, rejecting history. When Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed, on the Roman calendar of 70 by Vespasian and his son Titus. And Titus himself did indeed place a graven image of Jupiter where the temple once laid. Not only that, a sign that Yehoshua gave for the Jews to flee to the mountains was when Caligula ordered the graven image of himself as Zeus, aka Jupiter, aka Deuspater, placed in every Jewish house of worship in the entire Roman Empire, including the one in Jerusalem, the temple. And Christians gaslight, deny history. Now, Revelation 2, Yehoshua speaks to Yochanan, and he tells him to give a message to a congregation, to the ecclesia in Pergamos, or Pergamon. I know your works, and where you dwell, even where Satan's seat is. Pergamon. Okay? So Satan's seat in those days wasn't Pergamon. Well, there happened to be several places where Satan's seat was, but in particular, this one was in Pergamon. Altar of Zeus at Pergamon. That's Satan's seat. Zeus, therefore, is Satan. And so we just learned that Zeus and Deuspater and Deuspater and Yahweh are all the same, then they are all Satan. Let's look at what Paul said here to the Greeks who worshipped Deuspater. Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill, or Hill of Ares, Areopagus, and said, "You men of Athens, I perceive that in everything that you are religious, superstitious, fearful of gods, whatever. For as I passed by and beheld your devotions, beheld your objects of worship," very, very, very important, "I found an altar with an inscription to the unknown," not God, but El. They probably had the name Theos, the unknown Theos. Now, let us look up the word unknown. Unknown or unknowable? Unknowable by the Gentiles. In fact, the name is merely unknowable today, but I have a video for you. I have a video for you by that Nehemiah Gordon was interviewed, and he paid $200 to find this name. Now, I want you to understand that there is no direct Hebrew equivalent for agnostos as a concept of unknown, because the Hebrews know their Elohim, but the Gentiles do not know. See, folks, I'm asking every one of you to use the brain cells that the Creator gave you to raise your level of intelligence and understand these things. So what is that name? So I am not a fan of Michael Rood, and I warn each and every one of you to be wary of anyone who lives in fancy houses or that asks for money in the name of any religion. Any religion. Okay? Now, having said that, the whole purpose of watching this video is not listening to Michael Rood, but listening to Nehemiah Gordon. What is Nehemiah Gordon? He is a researcher, a Jewish researcher. So let's listen a little bit to what he has to say.
And it's somewhat of a mystery of why they won't look at Jewish sources. And I started doing some study about...
Wait a minute, let's pull it back a little bit.
Take us into the sources now.
So last week, Michael, we talked about how scholars, and serious scholars, I'm not talking about, wackadoodles on Facebook, I'm talking about serious university scholars who are trying to understand how the name was pronounced, the name of the Father was pronounced in ancient times, will go to the depths of every pagan, magical, and Gnostic source, anybody but the Jews. And it's somewhat of a mystery.
Anybody but the Jews. Let's look at what Paul said. Oh, I'm not done with that video. I haven't started yet. Anybody but the Jews, they will go to find the name. And that's where they got the name Yahweh. Okay? Just so you know. But Paul said in Romans 3 and verse 2, what did he say? He said, what advantage then has a Jew, or what profit is there of the circumcised? Much every way. Mainly at the beginning, because to them were entrusted the sayings, the oracles, the words of Elohim. You shall know my name. Remember that? Remember here? Where was this? Is it? And no strange Elohim? Remember how I showed you that scripture where it says, know my name was in the Bible 32 times, and shall know my name 15 times. Remember that? Now let's continue.
Of why they won't look at Jewish sources. And I started doing some study about this a few months back. I'd read a book in which this one scholar had said, a serious scholar, he said this name Yehovah is a distinctly Christian form, that no Jew ever thought the name was Yehovah, and it was simply the Christians misunderstanding what they saw in the Hebrew manuscripts. And it got me to ask a question I'd never asked before. And the question it forced me to ask, it made me ask, was, what do the rabbis say the name is? Because I'd only looked at the Bible, and I at that time had found the name in 5 Hebrew manuscripts. in a period, think about that, of 15 years or more.
Yeah, these are Bible manuscripts, where all of the vowels appear, so it could be pronounced.
Right, it's the Aleppo Codex, the Leningrad Codex. I'd found it in 5 Hebrew manuscripts at the time. But I never even really asked the question, what do the rabbis say the name? And it is a good question. Mm-hmm. So I called my book Shattering the Conspiracy of Silence. And the idea behind that name is that we have an actual conspiracy that's described in the Babylonian Talmud, the Tractate of Kedushin 71a, and it's brought, we even have the name of the head conspirator. His name is Rabbi Bar Bar Chana. It's kind of a hard name to say. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana.
Please listen.
And he lived around the year 250 to 300 AD, and he says as follows. He said, sages transmit the 4-letter name to their disciples once in a 7-year period. So what he's describing is, by the year 250, Jews were no longer commonly speaking the name. It had been forbidden by the Romans, and there was...
What? The name was forbidden by the Romans to be spoken by the Jews.
There's an internal reason to suppress people healing in the name. That's really interesting. We talked last week how there were both Jews and probably also Jews who believed in Yeshua who were healing in the name of the Father, Yehovah. And the rabbis wanted to suppress this. The Romans wanted to suppress this, so everybody was happy, right? But the rabbis still preserved this name, and they preserved it by transmitting it from rabbi to disciple once every 7 years. So that's a conspiracy of silence. We know, meaning we, the rabbis, know what the name is. We don't want the multitudes, and definitely not the Christians, to know, meaning that was really part of it. They were saying what they defined as Christians or Messianic Jews, Nazarenes, using this name, or as they saw, maybe even abusing the name. We said, let's just ban it. And they said, well, ban it until when the Messiah comes. And they talk about how it's...
Yes, so the Jews, the rabbis, they plan on banning the use of the name until the Moshiach comes. Let's continue.
Not permissible to speak it in this world, but in the world to come when the Messiah reigns as king, then we'll speak the name. But to preserve the name, they transmitted it rabbi to disciple once every 7 years. So
now in that was actually a ceremony.
So you're jumping ahead because I told you about this.
Oh, yeah, we're letting you.
Spoiler alert!
Yeah, we're letting you in on what we get to do for hours and hours and hours and hours. Right. You get a little bit of this, and so this is so exciting.
Last night Michael got the 6-hour version. I'm going to give you the condensed version this time, guys. All right, so. So at the time I wrote the book Shattering the Conspiracy of Silence in 2012, I knew about this source. I didn't know about the other sources.
Okay.
And what I knew is that the rabbis in the Talmud in the year 250 AD are telling us they transmit the name every 7 years. But the reason scholars will plumb the depths of every pagan source for the pronunciation of the name is they don't believe what the Talmud says. They say, come on, the rabbis didn't really transmit the name once every 7 years. Surely if they did that, we'd find traces of it in later Jewish sources. Right? Mm-hmm. And where are those traces? Meaning, we have over 100,000 Jewish books. And I mentioned to you, I have a database with over 100,000 Jewish books. It came out of Bar-Ilan University. It costs about $1,000 with all the updates. And scholars at Bar-Ilan University have been typing in Jewish books since the 1970s. To the point where they've gotten to so many books, you can do a search, and you're not looking at all of Jewish literature, but you're looking at a large percentage of every Jewish book that's ever been written. It might be, and I don't know the number, but it's somewhere between 25 and 75% of all Jewish books ever written that have survived, let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. There's other books in manuscript that have never been printed. There's other books that, they'll eventually get to, right? Anyway, and I got to tell you a funny story about this. So I went to get an update. You got to get an update every few years on this database. And I went to get the update, and I paid the money for the update.
Once again, what he's about to say is extremely important. Please don't nod off or you're going to miss it.
It's a couple $100. And they say, okay, well, we have a guy in Jerusalem that you can get it from. You don't have to come all the way to Tel Aviv, where Bar-Ilan University is located. So I go to somebody's apartment in Jerusalem, and he's an ultra-Orthodox Jew, and he looks at me and he says, why do you want this database? This is 100,000 books written by rabbis. You're not wearing a kippah. Why would you be interested in this? And I said, I paid the money. Are you not going to give it to me? And, I got all defensive. And He says, no, I'm seriously, like, genuinely asking. I've never seen somebody who doesn't wear a kippah, who's not an ultra-Orthodox Jew, be interested in a database of 100,000 rabbinical books. And I said, well, I'm a researcher of ancient Jewish sources. All right, no problem. I'm not trying to start a fight. I've just never seen it before. So I get this database, Michael.
Calm down, Nehemiah.
Right, well, I'm Israeli. I get defensive, you know. So I get this database, and I'm asking the question, are there any rabbis who say what the name is? And I think, I don't think there are. If there were, I would have heard about it, right? If somebody's writing a paper, a serious paper in a scholarly journal about how the Gnostic pronounced the name, and I've never read a paper, and I've read, I think, everything there is on the name, just about, in academic scholarship, surely somebody would have published this, right? It must be there, and I would know about it. So I put it's a flash drive, I put it in, it's all in Hebrew. Even the interface is in Hebrew, it doesn't say search, it says chapes, right? So I type it in, and I do a little search, and I'm like, I know I'm not going to find it. Within 30 seconds, I found a rabbi who said the name is Yehovah. Within literally 30 seconds. Within literally 30 seconds, I found a rabbi who said the name, the Shema Mifurash, the explicit name, the unequivocal name, is with the vowels Shva, Cholam, Kamatz, and you're going to hear that, guys, over and over today. Shva, Cholam, Kamatz, those are the names of the vowels. They have names, the vowels. Shva is that little E in Yehovah. Cholam is the O. And the kamatz is the ah. So this rabbi says unequivocally, without a question, he says, as a matter of fact, yeah, as we know, the vowels are, or he doesn't say as we know, he says the vowels of the name which are shva, cholam, kamatz. He states it matter-of-factly.
There you go, folks. There you go. Now you got proof. 100% proof. Unequivocal proof. It's not Yahweh or Yahweh. No, it is Yehovah. All right? So it's not either or. You just learned today that they got Yahweh or Yahweh from the Roman Deuspiter or Diuspiter or Jupiter. You've just learned today what the correct pronunciation is, what the vowels are. Let's go over the vowels again so it's not
the explicit name, the unequivocal name, is with the vowels Shva,
Shva,
Olam, Kamat, and you're going to hear that.
Olam, Kamat. There, I said it. There it is, folks. What are you going to do about the truth now? Are you going to walk away from it, or are you going to embrace the truth? Well, it is up to you to decide. I ask you to embrace the truth.